In a convent, Sister Mary prays to an image of Mother Mary for several minutes. Then she takes off her veil and moves the painting to hide some writing on the wall. After grabbing her bag, Mary sneaks into the Mother Superior's bedroom to steal her keys. Afterward, Mary runs to the front gate and desperately tries all the keys to open it. At that moment, four nuns start coming closer and a terrified Mary finally manages to open the lock. Unfortunately, the chain is stuck and she can only push the gate a little bit, so she has to move through a very narrow space. She falls as she reaches the other side and a nun grabs her ankle to pull her back, breaking Mary's leg by pushing it against the fence bars. The unbearable pain makes her pass out. When Mary wakes up, she lights a match and finds herself inside a coffin. She cries as she tries to open it, but it won't even budge, which indicates she's been buried alive. Mary keeps yelling for help, but nobody comes. Sometime later, American novice Cecilia is in the Italian customs office, where a soldier is checking her bag. Another officer points out that she doesn't have a return ticket and that she hasn't learned any Italian, so the process takes longer. Both men think she's wasting her youth by joining a convent. She's then given her paperwork and allowed to leave. Deacon Enzo picks Cecilia up and they drive for hours through the countryside to finally reach the convent. The Mother Superior welcomes her in Italian and Cecilia doesn't understand, so Isabel translates for her. When Mother Superior asks Isabel to show Cecilia her room, Isabel tries to refuse, but Mother Superior forces her to do it anyway. On the way to the room, Isabel shares that the convent was built in 1632 as a refuge for elderly sisters. The building is on top of the St. Stephen catacombs, which are off limits. The duo walks through several rooms full of older women, and Isabel friendly says hi to everyone, only to then tell Cecilia about the nun, who will die next week because of a tumor. Cecilia is shocked by how casual she speaks about it, and Isabel explains that death is part of the convent's everyday life. When an elderly nun with dementia named Francesca asks about her father, Isabel brings her alone while telling Cecilia that it's better to play along with her delusions unless they get violent. Cecilia stops walking to listen to the choir and notices a nun staring at her. Isabel then drags her to her new room while sharing the schedule. When Cecilia says she's honored to serve, Isabel calls her sweet as an insult and warns her that this is a hard place to live in. Later, when Cecilia is using the toilet, Gwen suddenly bursts into smoke in secret. They start chatting and Cecilia shares that her previous parish closed because of low attendance. She was then recruited by Father Tedeschi, who according to Gwen is very talented at finding runaways. In the evening, a special service is held so the novices can finally take their vows. The girls walk down the corridor with candles in their hands and Cecilia finally gets to meet Father Tedeschi in person. Cardinal Franco gives mass and talks to each novice individually. Tedeschi has to translate his words to Cecilia before she receives her rosary. She is happy to take the vows but hesitates a bit before kissing Franco's ring. Afterward, there's a dinner party to celebrate the new sisters. Cecilia chats with Tedeschi, who admits he liked science when he was younger, but eventually God showed him a path. In return, Cecilia shares that when she was 12, she went to play on the frozen river. Unfortunately, the ice broke and she fell into the extremely cold water. The paramedics managed to save her after her heart stopped for almost 7 minutes. She believes God saved her for a reason, and she wants to find out why. When Cecilia goes to the bathroom, she hears a strange sobbing voice. She follows the noise to the chapel and finds a woman praying on the floor of a room behind the altar. Cecilia comes closer to check on her and is shocked to see the woman's face covered by a weird red mask. Suddenly, Cecilia is startled by a presence, but it's just Mother Superior who assures her that the woman on the floor is just a nun lost in prayer. Then, Mother Superior grabs a nail from a box and reveals it was taken from Jesus' toe as she puts it on Cecilia's hands. While the woman talks about Jesus' suffering, Cecilia starts feeling dizzy and passes out. The next day, Cecilia goes to confession and blames her finding on having too much wine, so she apologizes for disgracing herself in front of Mother Superior and promises to do better. The priest in the booth doesn't say a word. He just glances at her before disappearing into the shadows. Cecilia is staring in confusion when suddenly 2 hands reach through the wall and drag her back. A terrified Cecilia is dropped on a bed in a strange room and 5 nuns with red masks appear in front of her. Mysterious hands hold her face before a masked nun stabs her with a dagger. But at that moment, Cecilia wakes up. When she looks around, she's shocked to see Francesca staring at her from the door. Cecilia turns on the light and the woman disappears. In the morning, Mother Superior talks to all the young nuns about their new duties. Aboard, Gwen keeps chatting with Cecilia, and Mother Superior has to scold her. Afterward, Isabel shows the new nuns how to do the chores in the convent, including washing the bedridden elderly, doing the laundry, and killing the chickens for dinner. As days pass, Gwen and Cecilia become close friends, and they have fun together during their chores, although they also have to watch many old nuns die. One day, Cecilia notices Isabel staring at her from afar, but she quickly disappears. That night, Cecilia wakes up when she feels something and discovers Francesca cutting some of her hair. Francesca calls Cecilia blessed and says everyone adores her, but Cecilia doesn't understand her Italian. Then, Cecilia takes Francesca to the infirmary and tucks her in, not realizing that she's being called Street Cecilia. The blankets aren't big enough to cover Francesca's feet, and Cecilia takes a closer look to find strange scars shaped like crosses. The following day, Cecilia tells Gwen everything that happened and admits this place isn't what she expected. However, Gwen says this is better than her last place. There was a boy who kept hitting her, so she hit him back. And as punishment, Gwen was sent to a support group led by nuns. They were her inspiration to become a nun. Suddenly, Cecilia throws up, so she goes to see Dr. Gallo, who runs some tests. While waiting for the results, Cecilia hears a noise and looks outside to find a masked nun wandering. At that moment, a crow crashes on the window and startles Cecilia into looking away. After a quick look at the bird's body, Cecilia follows Mother Superior to the office where Franco, Tedeschi, and Gallo are waiting for her. A very angry Franco demands to know if Cecilia has been with a man, and she swears she hasn't. Gallo confirms that when she arrived, he examined her and noted that she was still intact down there. Mother Superior adds that they haven't had any visitors lately before hiding Cecilia's red file in a drawer. Then Cecilia is taken to the infirmary and Gallo uses an ultrasound scanner to reveal that she's pregnant. After the initial shock, Franco declares that this child was conceived without sin and therefore is a miracle. However, Cecilia can only stare at the screen in horror. Later, Cecilia asks Tedeschi why she was chosen. Tedeschi points out that this could be the reason why she was saved as a kid and reminds her that the meek shall inherit the earth. Afterward, Cecilia is given special ceremonial clothes and taken to the chapel so all the nuns can sing their praises to her. 5 months later, Cecilia wakes up with morning sickness. She coughs out blood and is shocked to discover she's lost a tooth. Then she goes to breakfast and everyone stands up in her presence except for Gwen. Cecilia is given good food and told not to work because she must concentrate on the baby. Gwen mockingly says that they'll start to call her Mary. Later, Cecilia is relaxing in the bathing pool when suddenly Isabel pushes her underwater trying to drown her. After some struggle, Cecilia manages to bite Isabel's hand and frees herself, but Isabel jumps on her and pushes her down again, saying it was supposed to be her. At that moment, the nuns come in and drag Isabel away as she screams that they should try with her again. Afterwards, Cecilia goes to the infirmary and Gallo confirms the baby is fine. She mentions what Isabel said and asks for an explanation, but Tedeschi claims that Isabel has been mentally ill for a while and he'll make sure that this won't happen again. Getting nervous, Cecilia asks to be taken to a real hospital with a real doctor and mentions that she lost a tooth. However, the men don't think she'll be safe in public if the word gets out, so she must stay in the convent until the savior is born. Later, when Cecilia goes for a walk, she sees 2 of the masked nuns at a window. At that moment, a nun falls from the roof, and everyone in the garden screams. Cecilia runs to check on the body and discovers it's Isabel, whose face has been completely wrecked. During the funeral, Gwen tells Cecilia that she doesn't trust this place. In fact, she isn't sure if she can trust what's in Cecilia's belly either. Tedeschi interrupts them, but Gwen ignores him and loudly calls out her superiors, demanding to know what's truly going on. She calls everyone a liar, using dirty words, so Toschi and Enzo have to drag her away. That night, Cecilia can't sleep. Suddenly, one of the chains on a painting breaks, leaving it hanging crookedly. Cecilia discovers that the image has been hiding a text on the wall with a Bible quote in Italian. She checks her own Bible and reads about Satan masquerading as an angel of light. Getting worried, Cecilia goes looking for Gwen, but can't find her in the bedroom. Then she goes to the office to get her file, but the drawer is locked. She freezes when she hears a noise and sees a light in the neighboring room, but luckily it quickly disappears. When Cecilia finds a knife, she uses it to finally open the drawer and get her file. There's a newspaper article about her accident and some DNA test results. Suddenly, Cecilia hears Gwen yelling and follows the noise outside. Her voice comes from behind a wooden door, and Cecilia peeks in through the keyhole. Gwen has been strapped to a chair and the masked nuns are using tools to cut off her tongue. A terrified Cecilia steps away and someone catches her from behind, but it's just Francesca who gives her an amulet that she made with her hair. Cecilia asks her to help her leave, only for Francesca to tell her in English that she'll never leave the convent. The next morning, everyone wakes up when they hear Cecilia screaming. The superiors run to her room and find her belly bleeding. Today is Galler's day off, so Mother Superior wants to take her to the hospital. At first, Tedeschi refuses, but Cecilia keeps begging for her life, so he takes her to Enzo's car. After the group leaves, Mother Superior prays in Cecilia's room. At that moment, she sees a feather on the floor and looks under the bed to find the dead chicken that Cecilia used for her fake bleeding. On the road, Tedeschi gets a call informing him of the truth and makes Enzo stop the car. Cecilia realizes the truth is out and tries to run away, but the men quickly catch up to her and drag her back. At the convent, Mother Superior makes Cecilia have a very cold shower. When Cecilia mentions that God won't forgive them for the way they treat her, Mother Superior slaps her. Afterward, Cecilia is tied to a wheelchair and taken to the room behind the altar. By now, she's guessed that someone here impregnated her and demands an explanation. Tedeschi grabs the nail and explains that they found remnants of blood and bone on it, which gave them the genetic code of the Messiah. This could be the chance to bring Jesus back. When Cecilia calls him insane, Tedeschi takes her to a room where he keeps the jars with all the failed attempts. He reveals he's been trying to resurrect Jesus for 20 years and that he thinks Cecilia is the perfect vessel. Then they got to Tedeschi's lab and he explains that as a scientist he worked on genetics, but his peers disapproved of his experiments. Tedeschi became a priest because he knew the church would let him experiment if it meant bringing Jesus back. Enzo holds Cecilia's feet and Tedeschi marks them both with a hot cross. Afterward, Cecilia is left alone in her room. When she tries to leave the wheelchair, her wounded feet make it hard to move and she falls. After some struggle, she reaches the door only to find it locked and she has a breakdown. A few weeks later, Cecilia goes to confession with Franco and asks a lot of questions, but Franco doesn't answer a single one. While talking, Cecilia plays with her rosary and breaks a nail. She then pulls it off and finds her finger covered in a sticky substance. Franco finally talks to point out that if this wasn't God's will, then he would have already stopped them. A few days before the expected date, Gallo does another ultrasound and confirms that the child is moving. Gallo then goes searching for some medicine and leaves the door open. Cecilia uses the chance to grab a crucifix and repeatedly hits Mother Superior on the head until she's dead. When Cecilia leaves the room, she feels something wet and discovers that her water broke. Moments later on the balcony, Cecilia surprises Franco from behind and starts choking him with her rosary. Eventually, Franco drops dead and is seen by Gallo, who immediately runs away. After taking Franco's lighter, Cecilia goes to the chapel and feels her first contraction. Refusing to give up, she grabs the holy nail before rushing to the lab where she spreads ethanol all over the floor and equipment. At that moment, Tedeschi shows up and tries to come closer, but Cecilia pulls out the lighter. Tedeschi tries to make her see reason, pointing out that if she dies, they'll just get another girl. His monologue is interrupted when Cecilia has another contraction and Tedeschi uses the chance to try to take the lighter back. Cecilia breaks a bottle on his head and runs out of the lab to lock the door. Tedeschi reaches through the window to grab her by the hair, so Cecilia pulls one of his fingers to break it. When she notices the ethanol leaking under the door, she drops the lighter and the lab quickly catches on fire. After a small explosion, Cecilia thinks it's over. But unfortunately, Tedeschi finds an extinguisher and puts out the flames before he starts pounding on the door. A terrified Cecilia keeps getting contractions which make it hard to move. When Tedeschi finally breaks down the door, Cecilia forces her body to take the stairs to the catacombs. There are flashlights by the entrance, so she grabs one to search for a place to hide. After wandering for a while, she can hear Tedeschi coming, so she hides in a random room and turns off the flashlight. She stays quiet while Tedeschi walks down the corridor and waits until he's gone before turning on the flashlight again. When she turns around, she's horrified to find Gwen's tortured body. Cecilia gets moving again and manages to find a hole in the wall leading outside. She starts climbing it only for Tedeschi to pull her back. Then he holds her down and begins to pray while ripping her dress to expose her belly. Tedeschi pulls out a scalpel and starts cutting her open, causing her to scream in unbearable pain. Cecilia concentrates on reaching into her pocket for the nail and stabs Tedeschi in the neck, finally killing him. Afterward, a crying Cecilia pushes the body off and finally climbs through the hole to go outside. At that moment, she collapses and screams as she gives birth to the baby at last. After cutting the umbilical cord with her teeth, Cecilia becomes terrified of her own child because it keeps making animalistic noises. She decides to grab a big rock and crush the baby to death. Make sure to subscribe our channel Cinema-Fathom and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.